Are there any extras?
Extras? Yes. Of this.
The last one, 2.2.
Did I get it?
2.2.
It's 4:30. We're going to go ahead and call this August 30th special meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Peck,
Here.
Commissioner Angel,
Here.
Commissioner Arbke,
Here.
Commissioner Jennings,
Here.
Commissioner Larson.
Here.
Could you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Got a crowd here today. I'll open the meeting up to the Citizens Open Forum, which is a time for anyone to come up and discuss matters that are not on today's agenda. For anyone who's interested in the Pacific Avenue improvements, that is actually on our agenda now, so we'll discuss that a little bit later on in the meeting here. Anything else anyone would like to come up and discuss? Okay, seeing none, seeing nothing, we'll move on to administration.
Item 2.1, second reading ordinance number 10-10,563, submitting to the electors of the city of Salina the question of imposing a 1/4% special purpose sales tax for the period of 10 years for the purpose of financing the cost of design and engineering studies, land and easement acquisition, construction, implementation of improvements, and maintenance of the Smoky Hill River, and to issue sales tax general obligation bonds.
Ordinance number 10-10563 was passed on first reading on August 23rd, and since that time, no comments have been received. The proposed ordinance contains some minor revisions since the first reading, and those changes have been attached. Thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Motion.
I'll accept a motion first.
Mayor, I move we adopt ordinance number 10-10563 on second reading. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We adopt ordinance number 10-10563 on second reading. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Angel,
Aye.
Commissioner Arbke,
Aye.
Commissioner Jennings,
Aye.
Commissioner Larson,
Aye.
Mayor Peck.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0 on to 2.2.
Authorize change order number 1 for the Pacific Avenue Improvements, project number 05-1528.
Mr. Stack.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. As a part of the landfill cell 5 construction, we have completed that project, except for a few small items that need to still be finished up by Larkin. However, one of them was a large quantity of sand that needed to be put into the cell. We've talked about 29,300 cubic yards of sand was
Hey,
the
Dan?
estimated quantity.
Do you want to go over the Pacific Avenue improvements first?
I'm sorry, you said that.
It's just how the meeting's going so far, so.
Thank you. Let's start with Pacific. I have that one here as well. All right, Pacific Avenue improvements. Last week, the business owners asked the City Commission to consider installing some temporary signals to allow two-way traffic throughout the project. Since the meeting, city staff did look at the signal option as well as any other options we could come up with to try and mitigate and help the businesses and basically get two-way traffic out there. And so we looked at flagging to be the most cost-effective option, we thought, and the only option that we could really come up with last week. And so our contractor APAC did propose a solution for that for 6 weeks at $55 an hour during the week, $75 an hour on Saturdays. The businesses are open 7:30 to 6 Monday through Friday and 10 to 4 on Saturdays. That solution would work fairly well for us, other than on when the flagger is not there. So the people would possibly be confused. If the flagger isn't there, they could get through there yesterday, but today the flagger's not there, so they only can go one way. So there is the possibility of confusion with that solution. So at the request of them as well to look further into the temporary signals, we did that today, and there is a possibility of being able to signalize the corridor to have signals there, and that way it would work all the time, basically. The problem with that is there are 9 entrances through the corridor, and so to explain that, I guess, with the entrances, somebody could be coming out and they wouldn't know which way to go. Basically, that's the bottom line. If the signals have traffic going one way, and a person comes out to try and figure out which way to go, he doesn't see any cars, or he can't see what the color of the light is, he's not going to know which way to go. So you would have the possibility for conflict in there. And so that was the reason that we didn't believe signals would work very well, and the reason also the contractor didn't want to do it that way, because it possibly has more liability head-on. It's not really fast speed traffic, so we don't feel like it would be a major traffic safety issue, other than you would have to play chicken with a car if they were not going the correct way. So in looking at that option, we investigated it further and tried to figure out how to put in arrows at each entrance, and so that is an option. We can do it, but that came in today late, and we still haven't been able to really figure out how that would work and get a full price for that option. So thus, staff is really at this point in time only asking for, worst case scenario we believe would be the $22,125 for the next 6 weeks to install flaggers, and that would definitely give them two-way traffic. We hope to come up with a better solution, but that would be at this time what we can propose, and we would not spend any more than that amount of money, but that's what we're asking for at this time. Does that make sense, Jason?
Yeah, Dan, just a quick, clarification on the signals. If you're in a vehicle and you're in a driveway somewhere in the middle, and you look towards the end where the signals are, obviously if you're outside of the signals looking, not into the road yet, you're going to see the lights.
Right.
But if you're in the middle looking at the back of the signals, you will not see the lights. Is that correct?
Not see the lights. Yep.
That's part of the concern. If cars are already going, it's pretty easy to figure out which direction the cars are going. But the problem is there may be times that cars aren't going at all, and you have no idea which way the signals are if they're green, if they're red, and then if a car comes in and catches one green, and there's some of that kind of logistical issue. So what we're asking, I'm not sure that we're 100% on the flaggers at this point in time, but we do believe that's probably the highest cost alternative at $22,125. So the thought being is, if the commissioners are interested in another traffic control option, if you are, the request would be to authorize staff to expend up to $22,125 in addition to the current project budget. And what we would do is we'd complete the review of those options and try to figure out the one that works. It's the most efficient, that works best, makes the most sense for the businesses and for the through traffic, that wouldn't exceed that amount.
In the meantime, would we have the flaggers going or not?
We could, I suppose, yeah.
Good. Our plan was to implement the flaggers starting next week as fast as possible.
Yeah, the signals take some time to get set up.
Signals could
week,
take
probably
longer.
2 weeks.
Yeah, possibly 2 weeks.
And that's a long time to continue with some of the frustration and confusion, we think.
But you're saying that the lights, for sure, are less cost than what this man operated.
Yeah, they are. It's just getting them in time and getting power from Westar and the wiring to connect them all and the infrastructure to get them up. They just take longer than sending some flaggers out to just.
And we're paying for that. I mean, the city would
Yes.
we're responsible for the $22,000.
We are. I
Yeah.
mean, if you guys. If the commission approves this option, yes, it's about a 5% cost overrun for this.
But if you'll leave us the discretion to go ahead and finalize the analysis and just authorize up to that amount for an alternative traffic control or change to the traffic control to the project, and we'll finalize and try to see. I don't want to lock you into the flaggers just yet, because we're not quite finished analyzing the signal option.
Mm-hmm.
Did the contractor look at shortening the areas that they're working on to minimize the area that's one lane out there? Did they look at doing it in sections, or were they just going to do the whole north side? It looked like they did the whole
Pretty much
south
the
side,
whole
rip
side.
the whole.
Yeah, and then go
that's-
back to the other side.
Yeah.
That would be a total project change. if you get into something that really changes how they're going to, how they go about the project, you're probably talking about a potential change order. On assumption it'll take them longer to mobilize for each, 2-lane phase along the way.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't know what that would be at this time.
And was this 55 an hour, was that for flagger services, or is that per man hour expended on flagging?
That is per day for flagging services.
Okay,
55
so
an hour.
that covers the ends.
Yeah, it
and
covers both
everything.
guys and the foreman and the mate, making sure they take their breaks and
Mhm.
other things that has to be done. 75-hour on Saturday is just because it's overtime.
Mhm.
Dan, it might be useful to touch on when the current lane will be completed
Right.
and be able to be driven on, as well as that driving width.
Okay. The good thing that we have is that we're almost done with the south side lane, which is going to be 14 feet wide. Is that right, Ken? At its narrowest point, it's 14 feet wide, and we have a 2.5-foot curb and gutter on the side as well. So it's going to be a pretty nice road, and it's going to look like you might be able to fit 2 cars through there. So it's safe. It makes it a safer situation if you were to have 2 people come up to each other and say, all right, we can squeeze by. It's not going to be real comfortable, but we can do it. Right now, that is not an option. It's very narrow, and the road is in horrible shape. So at least come Friday, we'll actually have a pretty decent lane of traffic out there, but it's just not technically wide enough to allow 2-way traffic. So it's kind of where we're at, I guess. It'd be nice if we could just make it 2-way this week, but it's not technically possible. But if you have 2 small cars, or actually 2 regular sized cars, it could work, but it's just not with semis and depending on how people drive.
Okay.
I have the detour routes. We brought pictures and detour routes. I didn't know how much we wanted to get into the details of this. The detour route is just very long. There's only one crossing really from the tracks. It's Stimmel, Pacific, North Street. So you've got 2 options, but they're both a mile away. And then so it's a 3-mile detour route in most, basically.
Well,
That's not normal in Salina, but this is a tough situation.
we'll take public comment on it, and then afterwards, if you have a couple extra minutes, perhaps some of the people here that would be interested in discussing that further could talk to you.
Okay.
Is there any further questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any public comment?
I'm Ben Frick, and I was asked if I would talk, which I have no problem
For the record,
doing.
would you
Whether
state
it makes
your
any
address?
difference or not, I don't care.
Would you state your address for the record,
Oh.
Ben?
Once in a while, I live at 120 Overhill.
Thank you.
I couldn't hear back there. Just exactly how much money were you anticipate spending for traffic lights? What was the amount? We couldn't hear.
Well, there wasn't a figure given on the traffic lights.
Yeah. Now, a final traffic light solution has not been determined. We believe that, the flagger cost is about $22,125. We're very confident the lights would be less than that, but we don't have an exact number just yet.
Well, instead of doing that right now, why don't we, the 3 businesses, get together along with 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6 engineers? And the reason I say 6, just in case we're too strong and they'd have a little more time to protect themselves. And let's work something out where we don't have to use either one of those methods. I really think there's a way, and it always has been a way through there by having 2-lane traffic by just enlarging to the north just a little bit.
Well, I certainly would encourage you to talk to Mr. Stack after the meeting, and he would probably welcome any suggestions.
Okay? We'll see if we can't do that right away after the meeting.
Okay?
Oh, sorry.
Wes Carlson, 504 West Ellsworth. Part of the problem I see with, they talk about the danger between a flagman and lights. What's the difference between having a flagman on each end and 2 lights at each end? I mean, there's still a chance for confusion coming out of any one of our driveways. I know Continental Hydraulics has 2 entrances to its property on Pacific Avenue. I would not have a problem with conceding that one of those entrances be blocked and leaving us our main entrance and allowing for 24-hour 2-way traffic. I think it's very important I mean, it's definitely affected our business not having that. More than the $22,125 to put two people and not allow 24-hour access. I don't understand that. But, I think that the lights are probably the best alternative. They're talking about which direction to go. I don't see why the lights can't be double-sided. I can get on the internet and find rental pieces of equipment that operate off generator for less than the 22 over 6 weeks. I'm estimating it's probably going to take them another 8 to 10. I mean, that's just from what the progress I've seen. So, I mean, these are concerns that my concern is number one, they're going to spend more money than they really need to. Number two, the flagman on each end, I think it's a white horse because a light at each end is going to be the same. There's still a possibility of confusion. I don't understand what APAC's hesitation is to do that when both are equally as confusing. And people after work get in the habit of, oh, we can't get through this direction. So during the day they go, well, we can't get through there. They don't know that it's open during the day or in the evening. That's another concern of trying to keep it open 24 hours a day.
Okay.
If I can ask a question, and I don't know if you want to answer or who I can direct this to. First of all, I'm a little bit disturbed that we didn't figure this out before it happened. It's like putting the cart in front of the horse. My next question is, have any of you businesses that are affected by this, have any of you had any kind of an informal meeting or talked with any of our city staff to like what you just said and what Mr. Frick just said, to kind of troubleshoot this before we spend $22,000?
I believe Ken came out one day with, I can't remember his last name, but David, who's kind of the city guy out there running around all the time. Had a little informal meeting in our shop, and that was about it. Probably they're basically saying this is what the city's going to do.
Did any of, and I'm sure.
And this was not prior to construction starting. This was after the fact.
Okay, but are you saying that as businesses, you see where you can work together to try to fix this problem before we spend $22,000? In other words, if we have to, are you with Continental?
Mm-hmm.
So you're okay with one of your entrances being blocked to help the?
I would be okay with the entrance to the west. If it was blocked, if that would help provide 24-hour access down that road.
Okay, my impression of this when we had some people come and speak about this at the study session, was that last week? I was under the impression that some of the businesses were upset because of the traffic and not being able to get to your business and the mail trucks and FedEx and UPS and whatever. So I thought maybe you had already had a meeting and people couldn't come eye to eye or come to a consensus, and so that's why the city now had to step in and possibly fix this.
There was, to my knowledge, there was no meeting. Now,
okay,
I don't know if Mr. Myers or Mr. Frick had any conversation with the city or not.
So is that still a possibility of having these businesses get together? You have to commend them for wanting to save $22,000.
Yeah, Commissioner, that's always a possibility, and that's one reason if you authorize up to the amount, we'll go try to figure out the best option. They've already looked at a lot of equipment. We've looked at the additional lanes and ditches and everything associated with that. We've looked at blocking driveways. Those help, but the real issue is if you're on a single lane of traffic, is being able to know on either end which way traffic's going from where you're located. And so fewer driveways it's good, you still have the same issue, and we have to figure out how to communicate to people in between.
Well, and I get that. And see, they're there 24/7 because they've been there for so long, these businesses. So I'm thinking that they're trying to come up with a solution or how they can get this to work. And I just kind of wondered if everybody has talked about this.
And that's why I'm saying we'll be happy to do that. I think we can work with them. But ultimately, there's going to have to be some acceptance by APAC. And if you're the contractor, one thing to keep in mind, you're the contractor. He made a really good argument to leave it the way it is. Because the safest way is to leave it the way it is, make sure you do a good job of blocking off so people can't kind of sneak around. Because one-way traffic is going to be the safest way. If you any of these options that create where you're going to alternate one-way traffic does create more confusion, and we think we can come up with a solution with that, and that's why we're looking real hard to do it, and why we're trying to turn it over really quickly. But the thing is, if you're the contractor, you have liability exposure. That's your project area. And if something happens and there's an accident, you have some liability exposure there. So you're going to want to be pretty agreeable with that traffic control plan and not feel like you have to take on all that. So it's really important that what we do, that they're comfortable with as well. So there's no question that they'll also be a party and need to have some input. But yeah, I think there's some advantages and disadvantages of both of these options, and there's not a good option. I mean, a really good option. There really isn't. So we'll be happy to, have staff sit down and try to go over what those ideas might be, see if there's something we hadn't thought about, and then we can go analyze it, try to make sure it would work right and do all of that. I think that's a good thing to do. We can certainly do that. And that's why we're not saying for sure authorize an option. We're just saying if you can authorize us some funding, that'll expedite this. We can go, we can discuss, we can figure out the best means, and we can get it going and try to. The timing is a big part of it. We don't want to sit around for a couple of weeks while people are frustrated with the traffic, but we can certainly sit down and go through all the ideas.
How's the timeline on the project compared to original plan? Is it on track, or is it gone over?
I have to defer to Dan. I think it's on track.
I know it's hard to tell halfway through.
Yeah, the contractor's estimating another 6 weeks before the other side is done, so it's mid-October, and then the completion date's November 1st, so there's theoretically a chance we should make it.
Okay.
One thing just to address some of his comments, we've met with Pat and Stan, who are the owners of Continental Hydraulics, every day since the project started, pretty much. So they actually have a temporary driveway that we constructed for them on the south side of their property from Front Street so that we can get people in that side. So I'm not sure the relationship with Wes and to Pat and Stan, but Pat and Stan are the owners as far as we can tell. They attended the public meeting with Ben back in March, and so February. So we've tried to meet with all of them, and we talked to Kenny quite a bit every day too. David's knows them all pretty well. We just met with Ben Saturday morning on some things. So I mean, we've tried to go over these options the best we can, but like Jason said, closing driveways, we're doing that already. That's not going to help us. 6 weeks versus 8 to 10. That is something we wanted to talk to APAC about. If we do something with a change order, we don't want it going longer than 6 weeks. I mean, they've estimated 6 weeks. That's what we'd like them to live up to. So that is definitely a good point that he brought up, that we don't want it going any longer than that. I guess I can't remember if there's any other questions. If I'll let somebody else talk if necessary.
Well, we need to decide if thank you.
Quick question for Dan.
I'm Kenny Meyer, 6797 East Country Club Road. I own Kenny's Auto Body. I think if APAC has so much to do with this, maybe they'd ought to have a representative at a meeting with maybe the city engineers. Dave Cohart has been talking to me on a regular basis, and he suggested we come up and try and get some lights set up or some way of two-way traffic when we do have one good lane that is drivable. And I think those lights would work pretty good, because there's actually 4 driveways, which will be on the eastbound lane, that are 40 foot wide, that if there was a problem, you could pull almost anything in there but a semi and let somebody by at 20 mile an hour. And it's only a 2-block long area. It's not that bad. The flagmen, like Wes said, are going to be great for 8 or 9 hours a day. You're going to get somebody driving through there one direction and try and come back through there after hours or after dark or whatever, and it's going to get confusing. You know, I realize that this should have been done a long time ago. We had a meeting with Dave and Kent about 6 weeks ago, and this was supposed to be something started on that at the time, but it never materialized anything. And now that we do have one good lane of traffic that's supposed to be open up by next week, it would be a really nice time to start 2-lane traffic through there again. And Ben came up with an idea of them using maybe part of my lot to make a westbound road off from, and I would have no problem with that at all if the contractors didn't. And that would have 2-lane traffic continuous through there, which probably should have been done to start with, but like you said, it was kind of poor planning, and maybe we didn't complain enough to let you know what the problem was, which nobody likes complainers, but I think APAC needs to be involved in this, though, if they're going to be working there.
Thank you.
Just a couple quick notes. I'm not sure that anyone said APAC hasn't been part of some discussion, so keep that in mind. I don't think they need to be insulted unduly just yet, but they certainly are part of the solution as a party that's going to take on responsibility. We've talked about the other lane. If we can look at that further, but if there's a presumption that you throw down a bunch of gravel and that's going to satisfy, I'm not sure that's going to be the case for the type of traffic. If there's a presumption that you have to put asphalt for the types of vehicles that drive that, your costs are going to go up significantly. So we'll be happy to talk about that option some more, but I think in the end we have to cost that out. We've already taken a preliminary look. Whether that would still be considered a better option, I'm not sure. We've kind of come away from that initially, but would certainly be open to continuing that discussion with the property owners there.
I think naturally I would like to not spend any money that doesn't need to be spent. But the thing that I would urge is, as staff goes through these options, which it sounds like we need more cost on the traffic lights, we've got an option of routing a road through there. The thing that I'm going to urge is safety. With mom in a wheelchair from a traffic accident, I'm just going to err as on any of these issues to that. If there's a thought that we could read in the journal that somebody was head on by a grain truck that was speeding through there in the middle of the night, we should not take that option. And I might have 3 citizens really mad at me, but that's where I'm going to recommend that staff make sure that it's going to be safe for 6 weeks and we're not going to endanger another citizen. But I want us to get together after the meeting and make sure that all options have been thought of and that staff can go through and find the right thing with the business owners to get it done.
So basically, this is just going to say that up to the $22,000, but if it
Right.
costs $100, then
If we have a $100 solution, we'll go with it.
okay, all right.
Did
Probably.
APAC seem open to options other than the flagmen?
I'll have to defer to Dan. He's had direct conversations with them.
Yeah, they did. Signals are definitely an option. They saw a lot of problems with it, but I mean, if we put enough signals out there with enough arrows and enough boards and signs, we could figure out a way to make it work. That was the part that was going to be kind of hard, and they were trying to move fast enough to get it done. So at least we'll have one good lane here before too long, and then minimize the disruption for the rest of the project.
Okay.
To answer your question, where somebody made a statement, you couldn't drive through there at 10 miles an hour tonight because you'd get thrown clear out of the car. I mean, it is the roughest, terrible situation on how that street's been maintained. They talk about asphalt. You haven't put any asphalt in at all. And actually, when they tore it out in the first place, and then they turned around and had to saw it and take out another 2 feet, 2.5 feet, that put everybody driving virtually on the shoulder, and that's been chewed up, busted up, holes in it continuously. And the only time we ever got any gravel put into it was when it dried up so much, and it was too late then. It just got blowed out and rutted out from the traffic. There is no way anybody could go through there at 20 miles an hour right today. So don't worry about traffic that's speeding in there and hitting somebody.
Any further comments? See none, I will bring this back to the commission.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve proposed project change order number 1 for project number 051528 Pacific Avenue improvements for an amount of $22,125, not to exceed that amount.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the change order number 1 for project number 05-1528. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0.
Item 2.3, authorized change order for the landfill cell construction project number 092769.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. The landfill cell 5 project has recently been completed, and we have a few minor things to finish up, but one major item to discuss is the 18-inch drainage sand layer. The contract called for the amount of sand to be paid on the actual measured quantity that was placed. And so after Aquaterra, our consultant for the landfill, ran a 3D model of the area, the sand layer came up to be about 2,049 cubic yards over the minimum quantity that was estimated in there for regulatory compliance. We had a 0.1 foot tolerance, or 1.2 inches, and they generally hit that tolerance. So that's, we definitely didn't want, you could not have a less than 18-inch sand layer, so it had to be at least 8 inches or more, and so they hit that tolerance within about 96 cubic yards, which we see is about 0.33% of the original quantity. So we believe it's within the margin of error for as-built 3D modeling for a 12.1 acre cell. At this point, Larkin has agreed that this is the amount of sand that's in there. There was lots of discussion about how much sand really was in there between Johnson Sand and Larkin and the city, but the final numbers are agreed on, and they've been checked and double-checked by them and us, and as well as Johnson Sand as well. So it's like this is the number. Everybody's agreed to it at this point, and this would authorize a change order for a sand overrun for the $30,735. This puts us close to puts us over our authorized spending that we could have for this project. However, we do have liquidated damages that have been discussed before, and so it actually puts us in under the budget. Barely. So a challenging project has finally come to a close, possibly with this final change order. I'll entertain questions.
Any questions of staff? Thank you. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring this back to the commission.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve change order number 6 with Larkin Excavating for the municipal solid waste landfill cell number 5, project number 092769, in the amount of $30,735.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we authorize change order number 6 for city project number 09-2769. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Very quickly, Greg, I was remiss in allowing public comment after the second reading on the sales tax issue. Even though we've voted on that, is there, I'm not sure procedurally, could I open that up for public comment at this time?
I think
additional comment, I should say.
I think that's certainly your prerogative, Mayor, if that's your wish.
Okay. Is that okay with the commission? Yes. Okay. Again, I failed to ask for public comment on the sales tax issue regarding the river project. If there's anyone who would like to come forward and make a comment on that, we would welcome those comments. Just state your name and your address, please.
My name is Bob Homolka, 515 West Beloit, Commissioner Arpke, Commissioner Angel, Larson, Jennings, and Mayor Peck. I come to speak in favor of the river project, and very briefly, I point out that this was a vibrant community some years back. We had Stevenson Clothing, we had Smith, we had Stiefels, we had Neisner's, we had Lee Company, we had Lamer's Hotel, Casa Bonita, A&G, Bus Depot. We had 4 theaters that all at one time, the Vogue, the Strand, the Fox, and the Royal. Salina downtown was vibrant. We need to come back and somehow get this river project through. We need to, we owe it to the generations to come. I took my kids out the other day, and we ate a steak dinner, and the bill was $100, and I gave a 20% tip. She did a nice job, $20. And you know what? If this thing would go through, I'd have had to spend another 25 cents, another quarter. What the heck? Why? I mean, we need to do, and the commissioners need to do what they can to themselves support this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're dating yourself a little bit on that recollection of this line of businesses.
Well, since my friend Bob spoke, I will. I'm Mike Wilson, 422 Jupiter. He talked about the downtown being vibrant, and that was certainly true decades ago. But we all know that since the Central Mall has been built and so on, that businesses have moved to the south part of town, and in terms of residential building and so on. So I doubt if downtown will ever be vibrant. The downtown has become somewhat of a cultural center, Stifle Theater, Salina Community Theater, and that sort of thing. But as far as a vibrant business, I don't know if that'll ever come true. And of course, I oppose the sales tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there additional public comment?
Don Whitman, WITTMAN, 317 East Prescott. On this river project, what I'm wanting to know is they say they're going to clean the river up, but how are they going to maintain the river if there is not a strong enough current? Because I know when I was a teenager, we used to go out and set bank lines and stuff like that on it, and that river was anywhere from 6 to 10 foot deep, and over where it has to come in now is more than a 90-degree turnoff from the cutoff, and it is only about a foot wide and 6 inches deep. That's what's running into town. And I realized if they did something to it, they would, I thought about like taking the 2 by 2 square foot block, 10 foot long, 10, in cement, and lay it across where the cutoff is, so that the current underneath would come and hit that, and it would go, so it would come back to the old river channel as it was, rather than, it would still be low enough that when the water got high, rather than flooding the park over there, it would be able to go over it, and you wouldn't have to worry about flooding, but you would still have your undercurrent of your water to cut into and put some current back in the river. That's because that is why everything is growing, because it's settling. Because I know anymore, well, fact matters, it happened several years ago, some kids were playing around the river and they stepped into it, and it was almost like quicksand, and I had to run down there, and we finally were able to reach the kid and got him out. I told him, I said, quit struggling. I said, just relax. And so he finally relaxed, and we were able to get him out. But that's what it's like now, and it wasn't that way before. So, like I say, I just thought about those 2 foot square blocks, maybe 10 foot, to lay them across the cutoff so that the current could come through town and keep it flushed out. Because otherwise, you clean it, and you're going to be right back where you are in several years.
Yeah, our technical analysis has certainly included sedimentation removal and operating expenses and details. Our staff will certainly take your comments under advisement, and if you'd like some further details regarding the master plan and just what it is that we plan on doing for operation and maintenance, we'd be glad to get you that information after the meeting too.
Okay.
So, thank you very much for your comments. Further comments? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn?
Second.
It's been moved and second we adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. We're adjourned.